Welcome back to Post Sports Live. I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe, and joining me in the Post TV studio, Dan Steinberg, the DC Sports Blog, NFL and Redskins editor Keith McMillan. And for the first time making her Post Sports Live debut, Marissa Payne of the Early Lead. Marissa, welcome.
Thank you.
What do you think of the studio set here at Post TV? Dan loves this question for newcomers.
I think it's great. I think the chair is very comfortable. I'm very happy.
All right, very good, very good. Well, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you. Lots to talk about in the show today. It's a short week for the Redskins, lots of injury concerns. We'll first start out with the Philly game and wonder whether or not they could be a moral victory the way that they lost that game considering the circumstances. Or whether there's no such thing as moral victories in your guys' mind. We'll talk about what's the bigger issue and concern for the Redskins after 3 weeks, whether it's injuries or special teams play. I'll offer some bold predictions for the Redskins-Giants game. We'll get to your thoughts on the rest of the NFL slate in Week 4 and some good matchups to watch for. And finally, we'll wrap up with the Nationals now that they've clinched the division. We'll look ahead to the playoffs and some potential matchups and what teams they would most want to face and least like to face in the postseason. Marissa, I'll start with you since you're the newcomer on the show. Is there such a thing as a moral victory for the Redskins? And if so, was Sunday's game in Philadelphia one?
A moral victory is tough to define because you still feel bad after losing and the Redskins lost. So I'm not sure. I mean, you could say it's victorious in a way. Cousins played a lot better than I think a lot of people expected. However, you see the same mistakes being made on special teams in the secondary, which almost reminds you of the lineups from 2013, and that's not a victory at all. So I guess I would, if it's a yes or no question, I would say no.
No moral victory for the Redskins Eagles. What about you, Keith?
No self-respecting football player or coach would ever allow themselves to say there's a moral victory. But if you listen to the players talk after the game on Sunday, you listen to the sports radio on Monday, which I was guilty of, it sounded like a moral victory. Certainly everybody was pretty happy saying, well, you know, we scored 34 points and you got to score it. You hung with Philly. And I think though, you know, the fact they had the ball on the 41-yard line, you know, with a chance to either tie, you really should get a field goal there. And, you know, maybe if you convert that 3rd and 10, 4th and 10, you may score a touchdown and win. You almost don't feel good about that because they were in really good position to win. I probably should have looked up the win probability of that position at that point in the game. But you know, it's kind of half and half. It's a little bit they certainly felt good about where they stood after that game, but at the same time, there's no such thing as moral victory. They're 1-2.
Yeah, they're still 1-2. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's a total garbage argument. I mean, it was an exciting game to watch. It was kind of enjoyable at times to watch. But I think that, I mean, there's only 16 games in the NFL season. You can't waste time saying, oh, yeah, these 4 were moral victories, these 3 were non-moral losses, these 4 were immoral ties. I mean, it's just...
that could have been an immoral game the way it went down.
No, I mean, they got completely beaten up and battered. They have another important game 4 days later. We've seen teams in the NFL regularly get blown out and then win the next game. It's not like you have to... It's not like a progression where you have to get close the first game and then, you know, pull ahead the next game. You just win. If you have a chance to win, if you have the ball in the other team's territory with multiple timeouts and you only need like 10 yards to get a field goal to tie and you have a chance to go and score a go-ahead touchdown, no, you go win the game. You don't talk about how you were close the next day.
But given that the Eagles are 3-0 now and were largely viewed as the team to beat in the NFC East, and this was Kirk Cousins' first real sort of road test within the division in a game that mattered, there has to be some I'm not trying to sort of make the moral victory argument here, but there are takeaways and things to feel positive about, to Keith's point, no?
I mean, yeah, I guess you'd rather play well than play horribly, I suppose. But I just don't think that there are different categories of, like, I don't think you can get like a B+ loss versus a D- loss. Like, unless the entire team gets like annihilated and like legs start falling off and stuff. But no, I just don't see it.
Zero-sum game for Dan, win or loss.
I mean, the only argument you could make is that you lost your starting quarterback the week before, and this week the backup came in and threw for 427 yards. So that you feel like going forward, Washington's probably in pretty good shape with quarterbacks. Problem is, that's not the only injury they have to worry about.
That's right. We'll get to that. We have 45 seconds left. Marissa, I want to ask you, there's been a lot of sort of games that you can remember going back years now with the Redskins and Eagles. And could it be that there's more bad blood between those two divisional foes than there is with Redskins Cowboys, given some of, you know, the melees? You had the smoke bomb that went off in the Monday night game way back when, I think in the Spurrier era. You had a lot of just ugly incidents with the Eagles and Redskins. You know what I'm talking about.
I was there for that.
You were there for that.
I thought it was pepper spray. And
Pepper spray, that's right. That's
in
what it was.
the,
Pepper
in
spray.
fans.
That's what it was.
I
But I
mean-
mean, just a lot of incidents. Is this now the bigger rivalry for the Redskins, possibly?
Maybe, I'm not sure if it is for the team itself, although that brawl on the field took it to another level,
Right.
so maybe it is. But certainly the fans might be there. I mean, Philly fans are a little bit notorious.
Slightly
so,
notorious.
I mean, I'm not going to
Understatement
throw
of the
them under
day.
the bus. I'm neutral, But
And the Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the fact that so many key players from McNabb to
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson have gone back and forth between the two. Although that's happened with Redskins Cowboys too.
Yeah.
yeah.
The team you hate the most is the team that actually beats you.
Right.
So, the better they do against the Cowboys, I think that's still their primary rival.
Yeah.
But if Redskins and Eagles are the two good teams in the division for a while, that'll be the biggest rivalry.
All right, let's get to a tiebreaker, guys. And Dan, I'll start with you on this. A bigger concern after 3 weeks, the special teams and the spotty play there or injuries?
I mean, I think that injuries, so many of these guys, we don't exactly know their condition. It seemed like half the team is day-to-day right now.
17 on the injury report.
Obviously, that's a problem for this Giants game with the short week. But I think long-term, other than the Hall one, I don't know that there are serious long-term issues coming out of that game. And I think we don't totally know all the information yet. But that's my sense. Whereas the special teams issue is feeling like this has been like a decade long. I don't know exactly how long it's been, but it feels like it's never ending and that every week they find another way to screw something up. And I think you can, pretty closely tie two of their losses so far this year to special teams. And this is with a lot of new special teams players. We were told the end of the salary cap penalties was really going to help special teams. We were told that the new special teams coach was really going to help the unit. And to me, kind of long term, it's more troubling that it seems like some of these problems remain and that you just kind of hold your breath every time the special teams units are on the field. So I think long term special teams is a bigger concern.
Keith, give me injuries or special teams this year after 3 weeks of the Redskins' bigger concern?
I'll say injuries because you lose D'Angelo Hall, who's not only starting corner and someone who has been at times a lockdown corner and sometimes has been shaky. You lose him, so you put a rookie in there. Bashaud Breeland's probably going to start on Thursday night. And you don't have your other veteran corner, Tracy Porter, who they brought kind of for these situations to be an extra body there. He's probably not going to play. He's been dealing with a hamstring, I believe, since the preseason.
Right.
So now you're looking at Breeland, Emerson, who's a second-year player, E.J. Biggers, and not much else. You're bringing up guys from the practice squad at that point at cornerback. I think also the D-line, everybody on the D-line is banged up, and they already had Kedrick Golston out. They've already lost Cofield for a while. So I think defensively the injuries are a major concern.
All right, so break the tie, Marissa. Is it injuries or special teams, the bigger picture issue for the Redskins this year?
I gotta say, just speaking as someone who would watch the games, special teams is a concern because it is that thing. It's a momentum shift where you can have a great drive and then you let the other team have a touchdown return, and it just ruins everything.
Right.
And so from a I guess talking about moral victories and such, from a moral perspective, morale perspective, special teams just is a big problem, and it's been endemic year to year, and it doesn't seem to be getting better at this point. So, the injuries are a big deal as well. You do make a lot of, a big compelling argument there, and as well with when you have, guys like RG3 and Hall out, who are kind of the sort of centers, like sort of leaders of the team as well. It has to do something for the confidence on the field. So it's a toss-up, but I think just special teams just hits me personally.
I would tend to agree just because the injuries kind of happen to everybody, right? Injuries happen to every team at some point, and maybe there's some more key positions early for the Redskins, but special teams, like you said, the two losses you could potentially point straight at special teams as the reason.
Although I'm kind of curious how many of these guys are going to play. Like if Jason Hatcher doesn't play, that's a
Right.
big deal.
Right.
If Brian Arakpo can't play because of his finger, which he's talking about helping,
wrap that thing up.
I guess, but like he was definitely limited in that.
That's
game.
what they did. They flipped sides so he could use his good hand to rip and swim.
He'll be in there. All right. But you got to think Eli's just licking his chops at the prospects of that depleted secondary. All right, let's get to Kirk Cousins, guys. Is it realistic? You mentioned his numbers earlier, Keith. 427 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, I think it's not insignificant that this was his first real road test in the division in a game that mattered. So that's significant in a way, and he certainly rose to the occasion. Not late, but he rose to the occasion overall. Is it realistic to expect similar production Thursday night versus the Giants out of Kirk Cousins?
I say yes. I mean, the first time he played really well, you say, well, it's Jacksonville. They're not very good. And not saying that the Eagles are a dominant defense, because they're shaky at times defensively as well. But we've seen Cousins do it now back-to-back weeks. I thought, the eye test, he passed in the sense that, he was getting the ball out quickly. He knew what he was doing with the ball for the majority of 3.5 quarters. I thought in the fourth quarter he kind of rushed it. They had the miscommunication with the late interception between him and Niles Paul. And I thought on the final drive, he was either changing the play at the line. It seemed like he rushed a couple of those throws to Roberts and to Garcon. But otherwise, the guy was pretty sharp. You get 34 points and 427 passing yards, 511, I think, total yards out of the offense. You can't argue with the quarterback. And the Giants, not the Giants' defense of old.
Both teams are 1-2. It's a big game for them. Do you expect similar production, Marissa, on Thursday night out of Cousins as you saw in Philadelphia?
I do. I don't see a big reason why it would change so drastically, unless Cousins is just having an off day, perhaps, because he did show himself to be pretty good that last game.
Yeah.
And there were the slight problems with the timing issues that when he's in the pocket sometimes. So I think if Williams and Columbus can kind of hold off the pass rush from the Giants, then I don't see a huge
427 yards. That's a big number. So when you say similar production, what are you saying? Sort of somehow about like 350 plus?
I would say maybe 300-yard passing game. The other thing about the short week, and I know we got to let Dan speak here eventually.
Yeah, he's coming up.
The other thing about the short week is I think the advantage is maybe not necessarily to the offense, but to the you can't game plan a whole lot in this short week. So you run what you run, and Cousins is already comfortable. The Giants defense really can't put in a whole lot just for this game. So I think the advantage may go to Cousins and the offense in this case.
Dan, make the case for Cousins. Similar expectations?
Yeah, again, like when you say 427, remember that 81 of that came on one play, and I don't think you can count on having an 81-yard pass play. But even without that, he's still like in the mid 300s, and I would expect, based on the last two games, I would expect that's where he should be. I think at this point you have to think those last two games are much more indicative of what Cousins will do in this offense with this coach and these receivers than anything that happened at the end of last year. That's still going to be kind of held against him in the conversation, especially when RG3 comes back. But I think that you have to judge him on what he's doing with this offense, this coach, and this team. So, I guess other than, like Marissa said, other than him sort of being off and misfiring, it seems like there are open receivers all over the place. And even in the fourth quarter, when he sort of cooled off quite a bit, there seemed to be open receivers that he was missing there. And I don't expect him to do that consistently. So I think that he will be over 300 yards.
Let me ask you this, in the minute that we have left, how is the tone different for this team if he leads them down the field and scores a touchdown to win that game and they get the ball back to 40? What is different about
everything is different.
Yeah.
Everything is different. Then
we're not talking moral victories, that's for sure, but yeah.
Yeah, well, for one thing, they'd be tied for first place in the division with the Eagles with a tiebreaker, and we'd be saying, hey, is this a playoff team? Is this a possible division winner? Could this be a team that seizes control of the NFC East on Thursday night? Everything is different, but yeah, I just don't feel like it was like a coin flip game. I feel like when they had the chance, they did nothing. But I think that the conversation would be ridiculously optimistic right now.
So much of how we view the NFL too is what you do in the clutch.
Right.
You talk Tom Brady, because he's clutch, he's so great. And Eli Manning is probably Thursday's guy, a good example of somebody who's not necessarily great over the course of the season. 27 interceptions last season. He's been struggling this season, but he's viewed as a clutch player. And Cousins leads that winning drive. All of a sudden we start calling him clutch, and you start believing in him. You don't do it, and we'll give him a couple more chances. But he's not there yet.
He's definitely not there yet.
The fact that they gained literally 0 yards, I think, kind of beats that in even more. It wasn't just that they came up just short; they just didn't do anything.
All right, let's go to bold predictions, guys, on the Giants game. Marissa, I'll start with you. Give me a bold prediction for Thursday night's game at FedEx Field.
Alfred Morris runs for 2 touchdowns.
2 TDs from Alfred.
I thought you said that we were going to be shocked by your bold prediction. No?
I changed it when we were talking.
We'll come back to you on what you decided
the bolder bold.
Yeah, what's the more bold?
Okay, but it's not like
That's mildly bold. We've had
changed
worse
what we were
bold
talking.
predictions for sure on this show over the years, no doubt at all.
that's fine.
2 touchdowns is still.
Yeah, young 2 touchdowns would be.
They're really young, yeah. All right, give me a bold prediction. You know what? I should take a moment to give you credit for last week's bold prediction that you nailed the Deshaun Jackson, 50 or more yards for a touchdown. Finally nailed that one.
I mean, that kind of had to happen. But going back
You
to
called it,
March
though.
and April, you
Pat
knew,
yourself on
you
the
knew
back.
he was going to have his moment to sort of, give it to the Phillies.
All right, right
fans.
on. What do you got for New York?
Redskins win by 10 or more.
Wow.
That was mine.
Well, you got to coordinate then.
Oh, right on, right on. All right, so they easily win.
I don't know if it'll be easy, but I don't think the Giants are very good. I do think they're getting a little bit better on defense, a little healthier. If Jason Pierre-Paul can be a factor on defense, they may be pretty good. Their cornerbacks are probably, I think they're pretty decent. But other than that, I don't think they're a whole lot to worry about. I think that offense is struggling, and I think the Redskins are not struggling offensively. This is the game where they outscore. It could be like 31-21 or 31-14, that type of game.
All right, Redskins win going away. Dan, what do you got?
You know what? There's a chance I might just make the same bold prediction every week in a row until it actually happens. But I'm going to kind of double down on last week. Last week I said I thought Kirk Cousins was going to throw 2 interceptions.
Yep.
He threw 1. This week I'm going to say that Eli Manning and Kirk Cousins both threw 2 interceptions.
So 4 turnovers.
At least 4 interceptions from the 2 quarterbacks. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. In an ugly game, then.
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
They
it could be exciting.
interceptions.
I'm going to go, if Arakpo plays, I'll take, since you took my other one, I'll say two plus sacks for Arakpo if he plays.
Wow.
That's going out on a limb since I think he has a half a sack through 3 games.
Can we get the
all right.
director's cut bold prediction now, or is that
Yeah,
just
what's
that?
the director's
It was
cut?
4 from Arakpo.
4 sacks?
Wow.
Wow. That is bold. That's very bold. All right.
I told you guys it was absurd.
You scaled that
going
back.
in,
Oh,
and
well, I
then-
like that. The
With the
more
bad- with the
egregious,
bad,
the better. All right. What games
Yeah.
are you guys watching for in Week 4 other than Redskins Giants? Dan, what are you watching?
You know what? I enjoy watching the Philadelphia Eagles play, and I enjoyed seeing what their offense could do, especially in that deep hole that they got in. This is 3 weeks in a row they've gotten in those deep holes.
Yep.
I think that this Eagles-San Francisco 49ers game is fascinating. The 49ers are in trouble right now. They have not looked good. They have not looked like, I think we all assumed that the 49ers and the Seahawks are probably the 2 best teams in the NFC. I can't imagine anyone's saying that anymore. And
Or the Packers, who are 1-2
yeah,
also.
but the Niners could be in severe trouble here if they drop another game. And I think that the Eagles could really establish themselves as maybe the best or second best team in the NFC if they could win in San Francisco. So I think that Niners-Eagles game, I don't know that the Niners defense really scares people right now. I think the Eagles offense is more terrifying than the Niners defense.
It's a huge game for San Francisco. I agree. Keith, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at Packers-Bears, and here's why. This is how loaded the NFC is right now. You got the Saints 1-2, the Packers 1-2, the 49ers 1-2. Those are probably 3 of the 4 or 5 teams that people really worried about in the NFC this season. You got the Eagles 3-0, the Cardinals are 3-0. So right now there are a handful of good. Detroit looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. I think this Packers-Bears game, the Bears are 2-1, the Packers are 1-2. If the Bears win, then you start really worrying about them. Maybe they're legit. They're coming off the short week, the Monday night of victory. On the flip side, if the Packers win, they get back to 2-2. I think the Saints offense looks great against the Cowboys this week, and I think 49ers at home against the Eagles, I think they probably win that game. So all these 1-2 teams get back to 2-2, and now we have an 8-9 team race right now.
You didn't even mention Carolina, who some people were saying was maybe like the best team in the
Yeah,
NFC last week.
yeah, won their division last year.
Yeah.
All right, Marissa, what game are you watching?
I'm going to be watching the Bills-Texans for 2. You guys are laughing.
I love it.
Listen to
Go
this.
ahead.
For 2 big reasons, literally. And you have E.J. Manuel, who is the big old quarterback for the Bills, obviously. And then you have J.J. Watt, who is, J.J. Watt. He's legendary. You have these 2 big guys that are I think it's going to be a real big kind of cat and mouse between this sort of elusive big guy and then this huge J.J. Watt coming in. So I don't know. I think it's just going to be real enjoyable to watch.
And they're both 2-1,
both
right?
2-1.
And those
They're
are 2
both
winning
2-1.
teams that most people would not have guessed were winning teams.
Yeah,
going into
exactly.
this.
And that's another reason. They both come in with the same record, where they won the first 2 of their games, and they decisively lost their third. So I think this game, pitting them against each other, can make a really interesting, possible litmus test, but who's the real deal and who just had a hot start.
The Monday night game's not bad either. Patriots-Chiefs.
Right, Patriots. Yeah, going back to your Packers-Bears, I think if the Bears are able to win that game and get a 2-game lead on the Packers. I mean, I don't buy it though, because the Packers are more desperate and the Bears secondary is decimated after last night's Monday night game. So Aaron Rodgers has to be licking his chops even more than Eli Manning is with the Redskins game this week.
Wait, was that a moral victory for the Jets last night or not?
Definitely not. Definitely not a moral victory for the Jets last night. All right, let's move on to the Nationals, guys. Division-winning Nationals. We talked about it a little bit last week. They clinched on Tuesday night, so we weren't able to talk about it after the awesome celebration with the strobe lights and the fire hats and everything in the locker room down in Atlanta. Let's look ahead now and take a moment to speculate on the teams that they might face in the postseason. And They have a 3-game lead on the Dodgers right now for home field advantage to be the top seed. Let's speculate that they keep that spot and face the wild card team, which are likely right now to be either Pittsburgh or San Francisco. And I want to ask, that's the first part of the question, which team between the two likely wild card contenders, Marissa, would the Nats rather face, between the Pirates or the Giants?
I'm not exactly sure of all the stats involved here, but from just a slugging perspective, I guess I'd rather see them face the Giants, just because McCutchen's kind of terrifying at bat, and I think he has, obviously his home run power for sure. So I'd rather see them face the Giants just from a nice and easy perspective.
Giants better matchup in the NLDS. Do you agree, Keith?
No, I think you'd rather see the Pirates because outside of McCutchen, the Pirates aren't very loaded. They do have some guys who are playing pretty well this year, Pedro Alvarez, Marte. But I think the Giants are the one you want to avoid because they've got that playoff experience. They're not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. They've won 2 World Series now in the past 4 or 5 years. So I think that's a team you want. You don't want to see early in the playoffs. You want to get the Pirates.
All right, what do you think,
I
Dan?
agree with
Break the
Marissa,
tie.
actually. I think all four likely teams in the NL, you can come up with reasons for all of them that you don't want to face them. And I think for Giants, the main one is that experience, the fact that they've won 2 World Series, the fact that they have so many tested guys. But I think if you just compare the two teams, the Nats historically have done pretty well against the Giants.
Yes, they have.
McCutchen historically has just crushed the Nats. I think that outside of the Nats, the Pirates are maybe the strongest second half team in the NL right now. They're just kind of firing on all cylinders, whereas the Giants have, they had a really hot start to the year, and right around the time that the Nats started taking off, the Giants started kind of leveling off and have kind of been mediocre for much of the last 2 months. They may be turning around recently, but I just think that the hot Pirates, McCutchen, the fact that the Giants bullpen seems like it could be a little bit shaky. I think you take the Giants.
I would also add that you mentioned the success against the Giants in recent years. The Nets have had their 5-2 against the Giants this year and 4-3 versus Pittsburgh, so marginally better against the Giants. But I think it's a good point.
But I think
you guys
it goes
all
back
make
more than this.
Yeah, definitely. And the hottest teams in baseball right now are the Nats and the Pirates and the Cardinals, actually, at 8-2. So, all right, let's talk about if they get through that. Let's keep speculating and hypothesizing here. The other
parade
two
will start on like 22nd.
right. We're not going to get to the World Series. We're sticking to the National League here.
Okay.
So on the other side of the bracket, you would likely have the Dodgers and the Cardinals. Between those two teams, Marissa, who would the Nationals least like to face?
Dodgers.
Dodgers easily? Slam dunk?
I mean, you have Clayton Kershaw, who he's terrifying. He's scary. Like he has the ability to strike anyone out. So I think he's a wall sometimes, and I'd be
But are they
scared.
that scary beyond him?
I mean, Greinke, and then I don't know after that. But I think that's enough reasons to be scared.
Yeah, it
Not
could
to
be.
interrupt,
He's
but,
good enough. He's
yeah.
good enough for 2 wins in a series if they have their rotation set up,
Yeah.
arguably. Do you agree it's Dodgers that they'd least like to face?
Yeah, I say it's the Dodgers too. I know they have the history with the Cardinals, but the Dodgers, you got Kershaw, Greinke, Herron, who was terrible as a national, but has been pretty decent this season. I think they're a little shaky right now in their rotation outside that, but they also have Kenley Jansen, who's a pretty solid closer. So they're pitching, they're good. And then in a series, they have at least 3 guys who can blow up and take over a series. In Yasiel Puig, Adrian Gonzalez, Matt Kemp, those guys get going. Even in just baseball, these series are really about the short windows and how they match up team to team. So they have hitters and pitchers who can take over a series.
To that point, 3rd best hitting team in the majors, 6th best ERA in the majors. So statistically, the Dodgers are right up there at the top. Dan, would you agree?
I'm actually gonna go off message here and say I would at least want to play the Cardinals. And I don't know if it's just like a sports writer narrative reason or if it's a real reason, but the Cardinals have had the Nats number, not just in the 2012 playoffs, but overall they just seem to be a team that the Nats can't solve. We were saying that about the Braves 2 months ago. Obviously, we're not saying that anymore. So I don't know if these are just kind of random facts, but in a Game 7 with Drew Storen on the mound against the Cardinals,
Wouldn't that just be awesome? That'd be a great story.
And Storen's been awesome. And it's probably unfair to bring that up, but it just seems like it would be terrifying. And I felt like
or just poetic justice.
Yeah,
it's the way you look at it. It could be terrifying for fans, no doubt.
But even just that short series, that short, wonderful series out in LA, it felt like the Nationals always sort of had that in control. You always sort of felt like they were going to do it there. And the Cardinals thing is just, there's a lot of history there.
2-5 versus the Cardinals just this year. 4-2 versus the Dodgers. So the Cardinals, of all the teams, are the only team that are likely to make the playoffs in the National League that the Nationals have a losing record.
And
There's
like
something
I said,
there.
With the Giants, that one stretches back a couple years where they've done well, and it's the reverse with the Cardinals. So.
Right. All right, well, with that, we'll have plenty more to talk about next week. Marissa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Keith, Dan, I'm Jonathan Forsythe. We'll see you next Tuesday right here on Post Sports Live.